Welcome to the Noble Ape podcast, Ape Reality. I'm Tom Barbalet, and yes, you may actually remember this podcast. It's been an awfully long time since I last recorded a podcast, and in large part that has been due to my novel Field of Chaos, which has been launched and is now also available on Amazon. So if you're interested in picking up a copy, go to fieldofchaos, all one word, .com, and you will find the cheapest possible versions available online through fieldofchaos.com, including an electronic PDF version, which seems to be the favourite, the darling of the Field of Chaos series currently. And it's been an interesting experience. It's been a long time coming, actually. I mean, that's a large reason that there hasn't been so many Ape Realities over the past, I guess, 8 months. 8 to 12 months, really. It's because I've been working on this novel, which ultimately was written back in 1993, but just getting it edited and in the form of a book and what have you has taken a little bit longer than I originally expected. So apologies to Noble Ape fans out there. And I know the feedback on iTunes has not been particularly positive over the past few months, as there have been very few Ape Realities. This is going to change. Initially, because I am working on putting out the original manuals, and you may think, well, I can go to Cafe Press currently and buy the original manuals for about $15. My aim is to release the original manuals for about $7.50. It may be a little bit more than that in physical form, but the electronic version will be about half that. So if you're interested in getting a copy of the original manuals in a format which is actually quite new and distinct, then probably in the next few months I'll have a version actually out, available through Amazon, Lulu et al. And the interesting thing, having spent so long doing Field of Chaos, is that I've actually quite optimised my methods associated with getting electronic publication out. But that isn't why you listen to Ape Reality typically, so I will say that my hope once I've got the original manuals out is to gather together some updated text and put them out as well in a similar form. And an interesting part of this is I contributed to a book called Nature Inspired Informatics about 2 years ago now. I guess I probably chronicled that through an earlier Ape Reality podcast series, perhaps a series of apologies associated with why I hadn't gotten podcasts out due to actually getting the stuff in Nature Inspired Informatics. When I wrote the chapter for Nature Inspired Informatics, I didn't really get a sense of how much it was going to come out for. And I think that was something that really struck me, was when it was finally released, it was released at the alarming price of $180 for the book, which I thought was just dramatically overpriced. It did come out in a hardcover, large format book, but my hope was that it was going to be released in a paperback that students and folks who weren't interested in putting $180 into a book would, find useful. Well, fast forward 2 years, it's now available on almost all the torrent sites and what have you. It's been heavily pirated, and I just think this is the primary reason that I'm getting into this electronic paper publishing game, is just because these kind of textbook companies have just completely lost the plot. And there's still a huge niche to be opened in terms of reasonably priced textbooks for both paper and electronic form. And I think this has really just strengthened my original vision. Now, the plan is probably in the next 6 months to get out some biota transcripts. Unfortunately, the fellow who does the transcribing for the biota transcripts has been relatively MIA, although I have received a little bit of correspondence from him indicating that he understands that I've paid him in advance for some stuff that I haven't received as of, I think I paid him about 4 months ago for some stuff that I still haven't received. So, the biota transcripts are going to be an ongoing project, as is the original manuals. I hope to have the original manuals out, actually, in probably a month or so's time frame, and release another Ape Reality in that time frame. In terms of the actual Noble Ape development, I've been working quite a bit with the command line version, primarily to produce. It's the format which enables it to be dropped into various spreadsheet programs and graphical analysis. And when I was in the Bay Area a couple of months ago, maybe probably about 6 weeks ago now, with my brother, I stopped in at Apple and had a nice meal with Ernie Provocar. My brother was there as well. And we talked a little bit about the kind of graphical analysis that was needed in order to actually understand this rich output. So if you flash back maybe, 6-9 months ago, when Bob Mottram started doing the social simulation, social graph elements of the Noble Ape simulation, he produced a lot of variables that produced output, but the actual quantization of these variables and how they interacted and all this kind of stuff was never really done. There was various rule of thumb methods performed and various kind of, I don't know, finger in the wind exercises associated with how these variables would fit together. But in terms of the, I don't necessarily want to say the kind of methodological roots of the Noble Ape simulation, but certainly my background in terms of running the simulation for very long periods of time and actually quantifying the variables and creating various quantities and interactions, the kind of stuff which starts out really in the original manuals in a descriptive sense. Not really a lot of that was done with the social graph stuff initially. I mean, it's really more a kind of freestyle variable addition, just testing various phenomena and kind of localized number spaces, but not really testing the boundaries or really getting a sense of what happens after long simulation periods. So that's the next phase, and part of that is really this graphical analysis idea as well. So I guess the next step is just to get a lot of this comma-delimited output, variable output, and then start doing some detailed processing on it just to get a sense of the interactions and the space and this kind of thing. And I think that's going to be very interesting and will probably yield a lot of writing. A good portion of which will be put up on the site, maybe a small portion of which will be put out in electronic form in some way. In electronic book form, should I say. And I think that is going to really be a project for the next couple of years for Noble Ape development, is just getting interesting graphical results from these quite abstract ideas and kind of filtering it all back together. But yeah, that really, Bob Mottram and I recorded a special podcast with Bob to put in the Noble Ape feed, I guess, about 4 months ago now. That whole development really has kind of created a lot more additional work, which I'm slowly but surely getting to through the command line environment primarily. Now, as you may understand, I have a lot of additional stuff going on currently, not just the writing, but also a number of additional podcasts. And my hope was to really get the Biota podcast restarted and invigorated. The artificial life community has kind of almost gone underground in terms of the kind of community that was involved with the biota discourse, and there's a lot of toing and froing associated with other elements as well. It wasn't just the kind of nature of economic uncertainty and its effects on, the particular kind of esoteric research and development that hobbyist artificial life developers get themselves into. But I'm hoping that I can restart the Biota podcast with a relatively similar frequency. I think initially if I can get out maybe one a month and then move it down to one every 3 weeks and one every 2 weeks and then get back into that kind of frequency, my hope is to record one this weekend with Dave Kerr and get that out in the feed pretty promptly. And I think in terms of the Biota Live format, may return to that. I'm not really saying never again to that. It just, I think, will probably take maybe a new generation or a different group of contributors. Not that the old group of contributors really were that problematic. It's just, I guess, the nature of the discussion associated with artificial life currently. I have received some feedback because I put out a request on the Biota mailing list associated with folks who wanted to contribute. And the feedback that I received from that was that I should approach the folks who are being published in the Artificial Life Journal. Now, unfortunately, Artificial Life Journal is getting relatively thin as well. It's a kind of strange catch-22 situation, and all these areas seems to be dropping back little by little. But I think in the next year at least there's going to be some opportunity for writing and certainly some opportunity for documentation. And in parallel, my hope is, if the transcription actually returns to its original form, that I'll be able to put out the Biota transcripts too and just get a sense of the general level of interest associated with that. My hope is with the original manuals is to also send them on to a few of the sympathetic academics that might be interested in utilising this kind of text for certainly undergraduate teaching and some background into the kinds of technical musings in various directions that folks who develop artificial life typically start off with, because that's really where the original manuals come in. So anyway, this has been an interesting return to the Ape Reality format, but I did want to get something out there, primarily because I guess folks have been subscribed to this for many years now, and the amount of audio that's been going out has not been that great. I'm actually debating starting a Field of Chaos podcast which will once again take into even more podcasting time. I'm currently doing, including this one, I think 5 podcasts. So in terms of the medium, I've been getting some very positive and direct feedback from some of the aspects of what I do with podcasts. But Ape Reality has always been a heavy monologue. In terms of the last piece of audio that I put into the feed, my hope is that I will be back on K-Talk in the near future, doing a similar kind of wrapping. I may actually do a chat with them associated with Field of Chaos specifically. So I don't necessarily think that will go in the Ape Reality feed. But it is a part of my general thinking to actually start talking to a broader audience, and you can't get much broader than talk radio. To frame this, just before I appeared on K-Talk, I had listened to what they were doing previously, and this wasn't associated with Sector 5. This was the previous announcer, but they were talking about Obama being an alien or something like that. Kind of indoctrinating people through the schools and all this kind of good stuff. So yeah, I get the impression that K-Talk has a very interesting listener base, and it's always good to be moved outside of one's comfort zone in these kind of circumstances, and that's certainly something that I was definitely feeling with K-Talk. But I think also it's to do with a kind of broader narrative of the philosophy of artificial life being used in a very practical application currently. So I hope you folk did actually enjoy that audio. I left in the ads to give the kind of regional flavour associated with that particular program. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that and got a sense that I'm still alive and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, as I have been known to say, thank you very much for tuning into this podcast. Tom@nobleape.com. Any questions, any feedback? Like I said, I think in the previous live in inverted commas recorded version of Ape Reality, I really would like to receive some questions or feedback or general discussion points associated with this Noble Ape development so I could cover them in future Ape Realities. The Ape Realities that I think back on in the past that have been, I thought of particularly fondly, have always been associated with questions either from Malik Qtash or other related folk. So please do consider submitting questions, tom@nobleape.com. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning into this podcast. Look forward to you tuning into the next podcast.